Welcome to Getcha Rocks Off with Mick Wall, the world's leading rock and metal writer. Each fortnight, Mick will unpack rock and roll stories. Stories that you probably won't find in print. So pour yourself a Jack and Coke and get ready to get your rocks off. Before we get into today's episode, it seems Mick forgot to go all Nigel Tufnell and turn his mic up to 11 when recording this episode. The Getcha Rocks Off audio team did their best to salvage the audio, and the hilarious stories told more than make up for the less than optimal sound quality. Mick has assured us that he'll be going full Spinal Tap from now on. So with that out of the way, here's Mick and Jon.
Welcome to another episode of Get Your Rocks Off with me, Mick Wall, and my very
close friend,
Jon Hotten. Jon, so today, I think, I don't know if you realise this, I was doing a bit of fact-checking to start.
All the facts.
I'm all about the research, you know. If I say research...
You've never just sat down on page one and started typing.
No. Any young writers out there...
Yeah, we spend at least 2 days in solitude and preparation.
Exactly. I mean, I before I start writing, or indeed doing this podcast, the many minutes that go into me actually setting this up and going, so what are we talking about today?
Yeah.
So during that hallowed period, I was doing a bit of fact-checking, and I've forgotten what I was going to say.
It was probably about...
very good. Well, I know. Let's start at the beginning anyway. We're going to do an occasional series. That's wrong, isn't it? An occasional episode in this series on what I'm going to call the greatest rock frontmen ever. And we're going to start with a very hard to beat this one. Probably, if not one of the all-time classic greatest frontman, who is...
Mr. David Coverdale.
Yeah. It was Jon that came up with this idea, and I thought it was a wonderful idea because David is... he's the full package. You know, he didn't start out the full package.
This is what's interesting about Coverdale, I think, is the many incarnations he's been through, from his roots to the height of his fame to where he is now. You may kind of see this as a gradual evolution, but I think there's a kind of higher intelligence behind everything he does. I think he's a very smart guy. I think he's been washed along by the waves of fame at certain points. But Coverdale's a very interesting man to think about when you're thinking about rock stars.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he came from humble beginnings, as so many of them do. He came from Saltburn on...
Yeah, I mean, where's that? God knows. It's
in the north of England.
The north of England. Yeah, yes. Probably further north than that even. On that bit of the... Yeah, probably. We say probably. If you're listening around the world, just imagine as far north as you can get and still be in England on land.
In fact, if this was Game of Thrones, you could say he was in fact a wild lord.
Yeah, he's over the wall. I mean, he is nowhere. He's sort of, I don't know, what is he, 17, 18 years old, whatever. He goes out and gets a job. He's working in a boutique. He's working in a boutique in Redcar, which is a town, I suppose, people have heard of, because I think there are races there on ITV, you know, every now and again. We're now after the 4:30 at Redcar, you know, stop what you're doing, off you get. And he's in a boutique, and the boutique is called Gentry, which is in the 1970s, boutiques had kind of punning names like hairdressers do now. And this one was Gentry. You know, it's a combination of gentleman and, whatever. And you go in there to buy your new trousers or your...
Oh, hang on. Was it a clothes? I always thought it was a hairdresser.
No, it's a clothing, it's a boutique. It's a boutique.
I imagine him as a sort of
as a hairdresser.
Sort of
Lenny Wolfe, talking of great rock stars, Lenny Wolfe was a hairdresser of Kingdom Come. Kingdom Come was an actual hairdresser, yeah.
Is that why he had such
That's why he had such wonderful hair. Always so beautifully. His hair was
hairstyle.
Well, now you know why it was so good.
Is that why they called him the Wolf?
Yeah, I expect so. Or he called himself that. Yeah.
Pursuit.
Yeah. The look. He had the look.
Very important, the look.
Did Cov have the look when he started? That's the question.
Well, he obviously didn't, because that required a bit of work. But we're going to get on to that.
Okay. We're jumping ahead.
Well, only a little bit.
We're excited.
We're talking about David Coverdale.
Yeah, who wouldn't be excited?
I mean, in my career, I started out mainly writing about punk bands. This was in '77. And that was okay, rather dull, because they didn't really have much money.
Yeah.
And even if they did, they professed to be of the street, and I didn't get into rock journalism to hang out with people on the street.
No way.
I'm looking for a limousine to jump into. But Coverdale ticked all those boxes. I mean, he was the quintessential, would you like to get into my jacuzzi, take off that brassiere, my dear, rock star.
Yes.
But humble beginning.
Well, this is where the first evolution, I think, comes in. There's the famous story that when he was snatched up to join Deep Purple from essentially nowhere. I mean, who knows what band he was in before that?
He was in the government.
What you have to do when you research something, what you have to do is you introduce it very gently, so you feel the listener the reader is discovering this. You never just jam it in as a piece of knowledge.
And the fabulous brothers. Yeah. And there was another one, something like Vintage Gentleman or something.
Yeah.
I mean, clearly that isn't what they were called, but from memory, depths of my research,
that's what they were called. But all of a sudden to be in Deep Purple, and he turns up, and he's almost the finished package. He's got this amazing, wonderful voice. I mean, there's never been any doubt about the voice. Fabulous voice, probably alongside Paul Rodgers, the quintessential English rock blues voice.
And he was of that generation where Britain seemed to produce one amazing vocalist after another.
Yeah.
You mentioned Paul Rodgers, Rod Stewart, Robert Plant.
Yeah.
Ian Gillan, many others. So many to mention. He sent it in a place.
I believe he said it. Anyway, we'll do the whole history of Cov. I know you've done your research. But he gets into Deep Purple and he rocks up and he's almost the full package. He's got the voice, but he also has this sort of problem with his eye. His eye's got a sort of a slightly interned eye or something like that.
What we used to call in the playground, one at home, one at home.
Something like that. You couldn't quite tell if he was talking to you or not. He's looking at you, but he's not. He's also looking at the guy behind you, if you know what I mean. And also, unfortunate.
And of course, yeah. But wasn't there some sort of issue with his accent as well?
Well, I think the eye got sorted out by Mr. Richie Blackmore, didn't it? That's always been the story that Blackmore, altruism, your self-interest disguised as altruism, pays to have it sorted out. So he's not, so the guy next to him is looking like a rock star.
Yeah. But I think, wasn't there also that thing of when he joined the band, because he was a penniless former boutique / hairdresser.
Yeah.
Wasn't there also this thing where they said, okay, well, we're obviously very, very rich, so we're going to give you, a lump sum.
Oh, they did that, did that?
And apparently burst into tears.
See, this is like that. Reminds me obviously instantly of that bit in the Metallica documentary. You know, where they give Trujillo. They say, "You're out of the barrio now, brother. Here's $1 million," because that's the sort of money we've got. Yeah. And you know, anyone would break down weeping, wouldn't they?
Yeah, I would write. I mean,
if Lars wants to write me a check for all the good work back in the day, feel free. You know, you didn't get where you are today without a bit of, you know.
If you actually look at the very early pictures of David with Deep Purple, he's quite often wearing glasses.
Ah, yeah.
Which, you know, you would do if you had one at home and one at home. Because they would correct the eyes. That's what used to happen.
Yeah.
But what I understand is he was given this money to go and get the gear and the clothes and look the part, but also now I heard, I don't know if this is true, but I heard John told me this, so he's the one to blame. I heard he went for elocution lessons. Now that would figure, wouldn't it? Because if you spoke to him any time after the late 70s, David.
Yes, yeah, he had this very ripe, you know, almost overly fruity British voice, which I think in turn, and this is interesting, we'll talk about the you know, the way rock stars essentially invent themselves and they become something other than just the bloke, you know, the bloke in the street. It's almost, you know, a mask that you put on. You know, I think from the voice came the persona. You know, came the persona. Yeah. I mean, I think, you know, if you've got the voice all of a sudden, then you're speaking in a certain way. Right. And you're thinking, well, you're kind of thinking to yourself, yeah, there's one more jump in the evolutionary phase, isn't there, before that comes?
At least one. I mean, to the point where these days he is half man, half MTV.
Yeah. Half Lord. He's the Lord of Tahoe or something, isn't he? He is the sort of person who, you know, whose wife for Christmas would buy him a Lord, you know, a title, a fake title from the internet. I'm sure he's got that, you know, Lord Coverdale of Nevada, or wherever. I remember your old chum and mine, Ross Halfin.
The famous photographer.
Yes.
Is he retired now?
I haven't heard from him for years, strangely.
No, he started working very hard. He's a fantastic photographer.
He is. I remember him coming back from a Coverdale jaunt once, and this is the 80s. This is big. This is Cov Maximus, you know, this is Cov at his peak. He's moved to America. He's got the hit records. He's got the money. He's got the look. He's got this enormous house in Lake Tahoe.
Right.
So if you know where Lake Tahoe is, you go out of California, you head towards Las Vegas, you come to Lake Tahoe, basically. It's a serene spot in Nevada. The weather's fantastic, but it's a desert. Let's say, you know, you're living in the desert next to a big lake, but it's lovely, you know. So Ross was apparently there, you know, waiting for Cov to come out and, you know, do the photos or whatever it is. And he's sitting in Cov's conservatory or whatever, you know, garden, whatever it is, whatever it is, you know, his whatever. But he's close to the outside because he hears this chirping, you know, this tweeting, sort of cheep, 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 you know, of the bird song, the English bird song. He can hear it. He's sitting there. He can hear it, and he goes. Coverdale comes out, and Ross, fantastically, because it is a plausible question in this context, he goes, David, he says, have you got an aviary? And David goes, it's a tape, dear boy, it's a tape. And he was playing a tape of English birdsong to set the mood in his Lake Tahoe mansion. So this is the state he's going to evolve to. This is the point. This is the point he's coming to. Yeah.
Rock grace, he will.
He will.
After he has been through the many
levels. And so the first level with Purple is I think his first or second gig is the California Jam, isn't it? You know,
300,000 people.
Just the 300,000 people. That's all.
That must have been a squeaky bum time.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, what does that do to your head? You know, in all seriousness, you've been at Gentry 1 month, and then, you know, the next month you're on.
Fitting gentlemen into tight trousers.
Yeah.
and possibly doing ladies' hair.
Yeah, whatever went on in Gentry.
I do always imagine him like the Warren Beatty figure in Shampoo.
He is exactly that, which
but in Saltburn-on-Sea,
yeah.
you see, where he'd be riding, not on his motorbike through the LA mountains, but more on his
up the Hovis Street or something. Yeah. Da, 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 da. Here comes Cov. Yeah. Morning, lass. Yeah, all that. Yeah.
Can you get killers out?
Oh, yeah.
So he comes from that. It's almost a showbiz background.
Yeah. He's used to performing.
Lands in Deep Purple. He did tell me the story of all of that one day, but we'll tell that another time because we must try and fit in as much as possible. Now, there is a Coverdale.
Yeah, yes.
His first album with Deep Purple, and I was that Deep Purple fan that loved, the Smoke on the Water era of Deep Purple, Black Knight. You used to see them on Top of the Pops on.
Yeah.
And then I actually had the Who Do We Think We Are album, the last one Gillan did. And Roger Glover did, and it got terrible reviews. But of course, as a kid, you only own like 3 LPs, and they're all brilliant, But then the next one was Burn, and wow! I remember a kid at school brought it in and played it at lunchtime, that sort of thing, and I just couldn't believe it.
Blew your tiny mind.
It blew my tiny freaking mind. I mean, it was amazing, from the track Burn, but the two voices.
Yeah.
It was incredibly wonderful. Is it a baritone? I don't know what it is.
Whatever it is. Cool, yeah.
It's probably a multitone with an edge of Barry.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's in there. And then at the same time, you've got Glenn Hughes with this higher voice.
Yeah. Induced by who knows what, What was going on there?
Very tight trousers.
Yeah.
What was going on in the 70s.
Yeah.
But the mixture of the two, I don't...
And of course, Richie standing there hating every line of it.
That's right.
Yeah, because it sounds very slightly like it could be funk. Yeah.
But of course, and the piece de resistance for Cov, mistreated.
Yeah, mistreated. Yeah, she used to go into the boutique in Redcar.
In fact, before it was named Gentry,
it was called.
When it was a hairdresser,
it was mistreated.
Mistreated.
That's actually a very good name for hairdressers. Yeah, or a kind of nail salon or something. Mistreated, because it implies you're being treated and you're treating yourself, and It's very good. Anyway,
we'll cut that bit out of the podcast. It's such a good idea.
We'll keep it for
immediately
by Coverdale, probably. Yeah.
So, but mistreated. I remember the first time I heard that, and I still get the feeling, an echo of that feeling, all these years later.
Yeah.
Just this immense, powerful, but also subtle.
Yeah.
I just couldn't. I mean, and I loved. It was a great era for singers, not just British, but all kinds. And but that, to me, that put him at that moment. That put him on a complete other level. And
that, when you think about it, that's pure talent, isn't it? It's pure talent. He's not learned this from anyone. He's not. He just knows how to put a song across, and he's got the chops to do it.
Now, of course, his entry point into stardom is literally top of the
I mean, you don't really exactly. It's like signing for Liverpool from Redcar.
So not only is he hurled into this world where they give him what would have been unimaginable money, who knows, probably several thousand, to get some clothes, to try and sort his eye out, get his speaking, because also he has to talk to the audience. Which in many ways is more daunting than the singing, isn't it? In a lot of ways, Well, when Brian Johnson joined AC/DC, I write about this in my AC/DC book, which is available still to buy online. when Brian Johnson joined AC/DC at the very opening show, which was in Belgium or somewhere, he comes out after the first number or something to thank him. He's like, and apparently after the show, Malcolm Young, who was absolutely the boss of the band, like Steve Harris in the band, he said to him, "From now on, keep your fucking mouth shut, mate. Just fucking sing and shut up the rest of the time." Which
sound advice, yeah.
Advice.
Straightforwardly put. You can't misinterpret it.
You can't misinterpret it, and I think Jono probably rolled another cigarette, adjusted his cap, and just said, "That's good. That's good enough for me."
Yeah.
Whereas David, a little bit more application, maybe a little bit more ambitious, maybe just because David also extremely good-looking man.
Yeah, and it's now it's all coming together, isn't it? He's a rock star. He's out the front. He can handle it. He can handle the studio. He can handle the big crowds. He can handle Blackmore to his right and Hughes to his left. What a combination that is.
Actually, Glenn Hughes to his.
Oh well, you're splitting here, splitting legends there. Yeah, whatever. If I'm looking at him, it's the other way around, isn't it? Whatever.
Well, that's your way.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. Pacey. Yeah. He can handle Pacey as well. Everything that Pacey can throw at him.
He can handle Lord.
Yeah. Lord. Yeah. Lord, yeah. There's a guy you didn't mess with.
No.
You better not get the music wrong with Lordy. He knew proper music, didn't he?
He did.
Not just a kind of busket like most of your keyboard players,
And also, Purple were a flash band. They didn't have, apart from Coverdale and Hughes, who came from the Midlands, up to that point, they were all London boys. And Ian Gillan once told me that in the early days of Purple, after they made it big, John Lord used to walk around with like a thick bundle of cash, like maybe 500 quid, or in those days probably 100 quid.
Yeah.
But he used to tuck it into the belt of his jeans so that it kind of bent over like that. And apparently he used to go to the bar, at the pub, and stand at the bar, and he'd be like, and he'd go, "Who wants a drink?" And then I'll have a brandy. And And Coverdale would come in. Well, I know, he's not George. I can't do them all that. And they were like, "No, David, you're in Deep Purple. Brandy and champagne and oysters."
Yeah.
And why not?
Well, he probably did. You say that persona start to develop. But then it all comes crashing down, of course.
Yeah.
Purple disintegrates under the wrath of Blackmore and whatever it was.
Well, Blackmore walks out.
Because it's too funky.
Yeah.
It's too funky for him.
Yeah.
He wants to write 16th century Greensleeves. He doesn't want to write My Baby Just Whatever It Was, mistreated me.
My baby rocked my funk all night.
Yeah. That ain't Richie's gig.
That ain't, no. That's not the Man in Black.
No,
Witchfinder General has not ridden in on his trusty steed with a lance under his arm and a magic wand in his other hand to do Blue-Eyed Soul. No. And in fact, the first song he writes after he leaves Deep Purple is 16.
Look, you talk about research. That is how you slide research in, not as you heard earlier.
Yeah, or read on your phone earlier, which I would never do.
No, don't.
People talk about Wikipedia.
Always double source. That's the first thing you're taught as a journalist. Always double source.
Well, that's what I do. I look at Wikipedia and I click on
and then you think, is that right? Yeah.
Personal life, and then click on career.
Yeah, double source. Double sourced.
So Blackmore leaves because, and I think actually this is interesting because at this point Coverdale, who as we now think of him, is like the Lord of the Manor. At this point, he's still the new kid on the block, and it was him and Hughes that were pushing for this more funky angle. But if you think back to 75, and I can attest to this, That was the moment when rock became very, very interested in funk. Bowie did the Young Americans album that year. Elton was doing Philadelphia Freedom.
Yeah.
Rod Stewart was doing Do You Think I'm Sexy? There was this, there was Little Feat, the Average White Band. There was this moment where, because before that, in a music paper, you'd never really read about James Brown.
Yeah.
Bowie or Jagger or whatever. So it is a moment where this is cutting edge. And Hughes and Coverdale, both being the young guns of the group, wanted it to be cutting edge. And it was the days before heavy metal. So Deep Purple could be, in their minds, just as the Stones or even Elton or someone, a serious album artist, could play with them sound and try stuff. But of course, Blackmore was far more in tune with their audience. They didn't really like it.
Yeah.
So Blackmore leaves. In comes Tommy Bolin, who was Coverdale's choice.
Ah, no, I did not know that, no.
Well, and this is something he told me, he petitioned, because apparently the group were on the verge of going, okay, that's it. Because also groups in those days, if they lasted 5 years...
you had no expectation that this is a lifelong endeavour. No,
you just break up and form something else.
Yeah.
But apparently this guy's only been in the band for 2 albums. Boutique, California Jam, break up? No. So he goes to John Lord and he begs him not to end the band. And he says, look, there is a guitarist, and he plays him. There's a Billy Cobham album that Tommy Bolin plays on, and I can't remember the track, but track 1, side 1 is just this sensational kind of fusion guitar.
Proper music.
And on the basis of that, they said, okay, get him in. And then when he arrived, that was when Glenn Hughes fell in love with him, because apparently Tommy Bolin walked in wearing ostrich feathers, a purple jumpsuit, and his hair was dyed white and blue, and they just went, wow, this guy's cool.
Yeah, he's like C.C. DeVille. If they'd known who C.C. DeVille was.
I can see it.
You see the future. And there's going to be loads of guys like this. Yeah.
Kind of like C.C. DeVille, but not as good.
Yeah. Well, you let's not get carried away.
Or maybe better.
Yeah.
So Bolin comes in, and he is literally Coverdale and Hughes. They're like, this is us set fair. But the album is a big flop, and Bolin, because of his serious drug problems, they're all doing drugs, because everything was in the 70s. It was normal. Champagne, brandy, oysters, cocaine. It was all the same thing.
Yeah. You just riffled your little money belt. Yeah.
That's all you did.
Yeah.
But Bolin is all about the heroin and just an awful lifestyle. And of course he starts fucking up on stage, and there comes the famous moment, was it in Cardiff or somewhere?
Rock and roll capital of the world, wherever it was. Yeah, as they say. As David Lee Roth would say. Yeah.
And Bolin just craps out, and Coverdale leaves the stage in tears.
Yeah.
He cried a lot in those days, didn't he?
Yeah, well, if you listen to the songs, Mick, he does confess to crying quite often in those songs.
And often in the rain.
Yeah, in the rain, especially, because then, it's all mingling, and it's imagery. It's imagery.
Have you noticed
how you do it?
How many rock singers
cry
at some point
in the rain.
End up crying in the rain.
Yeah. But Coverdale was the one who identified it. Nailed it, he nailed it early. What could be worse than crying in the rain? You get some copyist comes along who does crying in the snow or crying in the hail, but we know Cov's already there. Crying in bad weather generally is worse than crying in good weather. He has identified that fact.
But particularly rain, because that runs down your face.
Yeah.
So on one level,
and hopefully there's a wind machine as well for your hair. Yeah. So you look amazing, even though you're crying, you look amazing. Which is the point. Otherwise, why cry?
So on two levels, you've got this crying in the rain where you cannot see the tears.
Yeah.
It's disguised by the rain.
Yeah.
But on the other level, the sky is crying
with you. Yeah. The heavens.
The heavens.
See, he was there. Cov had all this stuff. So all of a sudden now, you know, he's on his, well, as you say, he's walked off the stage crying. This is the extent to which he felt it. And we're joking aside, you know, he's deeply invested in what he does, and that's an important thing.
Yeah, to the point where the first solo album he makes, straight after this dreadful event with Deep Purple, is called Whitesnake.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you've ever listened to that record.
All it ever makes me think of is one Donington when the great Blaze Bayley used it as a chat-up line to some girl where he plonked himself down next to this girl and said, "So, do you like white snake?" But in his voice, obviously.
Well, we should remind listeners who are all experts, but may just need a little reminder.
A prompting of Blaze Bayley. He was on Celebrity Pointless the other day. Did you not watch it? What do you do all day?
He was on
Celebrity Pointless, Blaze Bayley, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
I don't tend to watch. I like to watch Has Been.
This was in the UK, Celebrity Pointless on a Saturday night. It's on at about 8 o'clock at night. You know, it's prime time, baby.
Wow.
Jess Conrad.
Blaze is back.
Jess Conrad was on the same show. He was being Blaze in Pointless. You Have a Partner. Blaze was being partnered by Dave or whatever his name was from Shawaddy Waddy. Wow. You remember that guy?
Wow.
Yeah.
This is other level.
This is other level. Blaze was there, and he was very funny and very good, actually. He's a terrific man. So Blaze Bayley was the singer in Wolfsbane, who were the sort of, the Tamworth Van Halen, without a doubt. But was then recruited to be in Iron Maiden when Bruce went off to do his many solo things and did a couple of albums with Maiden, I think, and then left, and he's now, I believe, back in Wolfsbane, where he always should have been in the first place. Wolfsbane, incidentally, who were kind of screwed up, weren't they, by Rick Rubin? They had they were a sensation.
They were kind of definitely.
They were being chased by every record company. They were a great, this really hot young British band. They did a tour with the Choir Boys, which was a brilliant double-header tour at the time when both bands were sort of on the cusp of being big. And from America came Rick Rubin swooping in. And Rubin at the time, I mean, he'd done, he had Deaf America and he'd done Walk This Way and all of that stuff. Whatever. Yeah. What was it he did with the Beastie Boys? It was Beastie Boys and Run DMC, wasn't it?
You're right to Park.
Yeah.
He'd also done the Electric album.
Yeah, with the Cult. He'd done all this. So it's like Rubin, Yeah, obviously. So Rubin, so all of a sudden Wolfsbane on the plane to America and the rest of it, they're living in LA and making an album with Rubin, which is fantastic. But sadly, when it came out, it just didn't sound like them. It just sounded like Rick Rubin.
Yeah.
Which he had that sound at the time, very sort of flat guitars, Whereas they needed Ted Templeman or someone like that, Yeah.
Or Keith Olsen.
Yeah, so Keith Olsen, yeah.
Or Bruce Fairbairn.
Yeah.
Now we're going.
We're off track. Let's get
back to Mr. Coverdale. So his first album, Whitesnake, which I have listened to. Fortunately, I had the Valium with me at the time because it is the most dour, self-absorbed. I mean, I like depressing music. I mean, I do. I mean, I love
all the depressed guys. Yeah,
dark. I like the darkness.
Yeah.
I like the band Darkness, but I like before the Darkness there was the Darkness.
Yeah,
love it.
Your Leonard Cohens, your kind of all those guys, those sad guys.
Despite the wonderful voice, is no Leonard Cohen.
No, he's big. He's on a larger scale. I mean, in the nicest possible way, he's on a larger scale than Cohen is a poet. Poetry is about condensing everything down into a single line or two or three lines. It's about that, that you can then read everything from the bird on the wire and all of this stuff. Cov's crying in the rain. You know, Leonard ain't crying in the rain. You know, Leonard was crying in the rain when he was about 12. You know, he's pushed that imagery aside. But because Leonard may write good, but Leonard don't look good. You know, David looks good when he's crying in the rain. He just, yeah, absolutely.
And also, I can't help feeling David missed a slight trick with the title, because I can't imagine a Leonard Cohen album.
What, do you think?
White Snake.
Do you not think he thought about that briefly?
Who, Leonard
yeah, Leonard Cohen's White Snake.
I don't think Leonard
that would be amazing. No, again, it's small, it's insular. White Snakes, you know, White Snake.
Exactly.
What is a white snake? Well, we know what it is, but I mean, in general, when you're trying to convince the public that this isn't, a double entendre, when you're trying to say, oh, this is a white snake, you know. I've looked in the nature books, I've done my research, I've looked at. There ain't no white snake. That's not the name of a snake. There's not a snake called a white snake. You know, there's a brown snake. Yeah, but an albino snake, grass snake. But there ain't a white snake.
What if we call
because
grass snake?
It would have been again on a small scale. Leonard Cohen's grass snake. Yes, because it's, you know, and the imagery, you know, you can imagine Len outside in Greece sees a grass snake or something, you know, it's all of a
Suzanne, I love you with my grass snake.
Yeah, it kind of works, not quite, but a white snake. Now, a white snake, as far as my in-depth, you know, natural history research shows me, is just a snake big enough for a naked woman to sit astride.
But actually bigger. Well, still astride, but so big she can barely stretch her legs up.
Around, there is a picture that backs this up, I believe.
It's actually the cover of an album.
I think Cov found that picture of the white snake and thought that would be a great album cover.
Really?
Yeah, and then thought maybe even the name of the band.
Get out of it.
Well, anyway.
Well, what he told me once, he said that White Snake to him was like his blues name. So, you know, you get...
Oh, like Albino Johnson or whatever.
Blind Lemon Deficit.
Yeah.
He honestly, in his mind, it would be
that's fantastic.
David
White Snake Coverdale. Yeah. Have you ever thought about yourself what you'd be, or...
I think I'd be more of a...
Old Mick Wall.
Mick...
Mick
Garden Worm.
Hey, do you see the garden worm last night down at the club? It's amazing. He did the Crossroads.
Hey man, the worm. He rules.
The worm, the blind worm. Yeah.
Blind garden worm.
Yeah, he's blind and legless. That's what he is. Well, snakes, you know, legless, obviously, but anyway.
He does.
So he thinks. This is a great. This is the best insight we've had so far. David Coverdale walks around thinking of himself as David Whitesnake Coverdale. Yeah. That tells you a lot, doesn't it, about what's to come?
Yeah. Do you think that's a symbolic name?
Where he came up with it?
What would it be symbolic?
Yeah, exactly. We just don't know.
I think we have
but when he was
giant. The giant snake,
when he was
a very attractive young woman,
astride. Well, that is the size of a white snake. Yeah.
Well, you think it's the size of David's?
Well, no, I can't possibly that big. We'd have seen it, wouldn't we?
Maybe to a woman.
We'll come to a story later where we almost do see it. So let's
forge ahead. So he does a couple of solo albums.
The North Winds as well.
Crickets, as they say. Crickets. In other words, silence.
Right. Yeah. The old tumbleweed.
Yeah. Exactly. But he has the seeds of Whitesnake there because he's got White Snake.
Yeah.
But he's also got Mickey Moody, who he's written these songs with. And then he puts a touring band together, ostensibly for his second solo album. But then at the last minute turns it into a group entity. And this is where the great Bernie Marsden comes in. I can't remember who the original drummer was. There was a kind of hodgepodge of ex-Camel.
Yeah.
Guys just on the...
Neil Murray rocked up.
at some point.
Yeah.
I think it was Colin Hodgkins.
Bomber Hodgkins. I thought it was Murray, then Hodgkins, then Murray again, was it? Or so it was something like that, anyway. It could well have been. Could well have been, I'm sure. Yeah, yeah.
And
then on the old drums comes Mr. Cozy Powell, doesn't he?
Was he there?
I don't know if he was there at the start. No, just have him now. I mean, get him straight in the band.
What happens is Ian Pace joins the band.
Oh, he does, doesn't he? Yeah.
Ian Pace joins the band, and then John Lord joins the band. So by the time you get to like 79, you've essentially got all the good bits of Mark III Deep Purple, but without Tommy Bolin, who's dead at this point, and without Glenn Hughes, who is also in a
indisposed, as they say, musical differences, as it used to be called.
Nervous exhaustion.
Yeah.
He was burnt out from the road and needed 3 years off to recover. Clearly, So to recap, you've got David on vocals, masterful vocals, Bernie Marsden and Mickey Moody on guitar, but also songwriting, and you've got did Roger Glover join Whitesnake?
I don't know. Did he? I thought.
Oh no, he was in Rainbow.
He was in Rainbow. He went off with Richie and
yeah. Well, he didn't go off.
Later. Yeah. When Richie needed the old fairy dust at the controls of it. Yeah.
So I can't remember who was on. Probably Neil Murray or Colin, one of the other. But also you've got Pacey on drums and Lordy on keyboard.
Yeah, because people remember we used to go and see Whitesnake around this time, and they were kind of probably up to that sort of Hammersmith Odeon size at this point. They did. And what would happen is they would come on, they'd do a couple of songs, Covered do his that, and then would come the drum solo, the keyboard solo, probably the bass solo, whatever. That went on for hours. And then they'd come and do a couple more songs, that was it.
And then they'd do Ain't No Love.
Yeah, they do Ain't No Love. We'd all sing along.
Yeah, with our arms in the air. Ain't No Love.
Yeah. In the heart of the city. Yeah.
Good on drum.
Yeah.
I can see
Ain't no love in the heart of town. Yeah, it was beautiful. And he used to go, baby. That was it. Yeah, wonderful.
And at the end of every show, he would say, I fare thee well?
Something like that. But I used to play Whitesnake live in the heart of the city all the time. And he used to go, here's a song for you. That was
here's a song for you.
Yeah.
I wish you well. That was it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Good night, Hammersmith. I wish you well. I'll tell you a great story. I saw them, Whitesnake, this generation of Whitesnake, in 1979, springtime. I remember it specifically, and I'll tell you why. At this Hammersmith Odeon, and I had just taken a job at a publicity company called Heavy Publicity. And they were paying actual money, which is something I've never really earned before, Sounds magazine or anything else I'd done. So I was leaving Sounds, and the very last review I would ever write was Whitesnake at the Hammersmith Odeon. And I went there in a spirit of great joy and freedom, because I was never, this is the end of my career as a music journalist, and I just felt I would never be held to account. So I just had the most marvellous time writing this review, which basically slaughtered the whole thing. Not because I didn't like it, but because...
No, definitely not.
Deep love. No, there was deep love. It's like, it's only when you really love something that you can get upset about it.
Yeah.
And I think what got on my nerves was the fact that it was sort of Deep Purple light. You know what? All these years later, I can't even remember what I did. I was probably just a complete twat, just being an arse. Rock critics. Arses. Anyway, so I wrote this review, and that's it. I'm done. I ain't never coming back, right? And then a few months later, listening to the radio in the kitchen on a Sunday, there was some kind of magazine program, and Coverdale was the guest. And he's, being very pleasant and funny. and they say to him, David, you've had your tussles with the critics. How do you handle it? And he said, I never, ever, ever let the critics get under my skin. It's all just water off a duck's back. There was only one time. Someone really got to me, and that was Mick Wall. And I'm like, what did I hear? Yeah. And he goes, his review of when we played the Hammersmith Odeon a few weeks ago.
Was he even there?
Me?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's what Coverdale was thinking. Was he even there?
Right, no,
Did he see the same show? Or was he in the pub round the corner, ladies and gentlemen? Or the little backstage bar with your old mate? Who was your old mate who worked in the...
But no, I really was there, in the balcony. And he said he came with a fantastic line, and I can't remember precisely what it was, so I have to paraphrase. But he basically said, all he had to do was call my wife ugly, and he would have completely destroyed me. And I'm in the kitchen making He did say mean.
Yeah.
And so that got buried, and then cut to 5 years later, of course I'm back, writing about rock bands. And I was, Neil Murray, the bass player in Whitesnake, who was always at every gig in London. We used to...
King Ligger.
Total King Ligger. But he became very matey, and this is kind of
lovely man.
He really got matey with rocks. But Neil was great. And one day I was interviewing him, and I said, it's really weird. And I told him the story. He went, "Oh no, we know. He still talks about that with you." I went, "What?" He went, "Yeah." He said, "When you first appeared on the scene writing about us, Coverdale said, watch this fucking guy. He's poison."
He got that. It's just so right. I mean,
All
he should have rung Axel at that point. Could have saved us all a lot of pain.
Spreading love.
Yeah. Guns or knives.
Anyway, so the early Whitesnake, they were magnificent. I mean, Fool for Your Lovin'.
Oh, I wrote some tremendous songs. Here I Go Again. Really, really good stuff they used to write. Blind Man. That was a good one. I remember.
Soldier.
That was Deep Purple. Like a blind man, I can feel the heat of the sun. But like a blind man, I don't know where it's coming from. He had a few. That's why he ain't Leonard Cohen, mate.
And that's, was it the sun? Like a blind man, I can't tell what it gives me so much pain, I end up crying.
Yeah, there you go. He doesn't like the sun. Never like the sun.
No.
Even though then decided to live in Lake Tahoe.
But
English bird song to remind him of the rain, remind him of the good times.
So Whitesnake have
a good career. They have a good career. They have a good. When do you think, Mick? Because I remember that era was when I was becoming a fan, and you sort of, your big bands at the time were still easy to keep a hand on. It's like that old Dr. Johnson thing of him being the last man to have read everything. Back in the day, if you were a rock fan in the sort of late 70s, early 80s or whatever, there was a chance you could hear everything, wasn't there? Because you could start with Led Zeppelin and Black Sabbath and Deep Purple and build a collection. You would have pretty much heard all of the heavy metal that was out there. There was, you had Judas Priest, you had Rainbow, you had Whitesnake. These people they're getting on top of the pops, which is, pretty big for rock bands in those days.
Since you've been gone.
Yeah.
Since you've been gone.
Yeah. And Cov replies with, "Fool for your love no more. I was born under a bad sign." Wonderful. I mean, great stuff. You can quote it. It's a great song. So, and weirdly, David thought I know what you're going to say. David thought it was such a good song, he'd re-record it several times.
He did. I mean, why let a good song die?
Yeah, well, why not make it better by having Steve Vai play on it? Yeah. We're going to come to all this.
Steve kind of ruined the vibe.
Well, some may say that, but he then went and gigged with Leonard Cohen, and it was all good.
Yeah, listen, I doubt no one in my admiration.
No. So, but the point I was going to make is there were just a few bands doing this, and then all of a sudden you got 1980 new wave of British heavy metal, and that to me, I mean, I don't know. As I say, I was only just kind of becoming a fan. But that seemed to shift the goalpost quite radically. All of a sudden, it wasn't a narrow field anymore. And Whitesnake sort of felt like they might be being left behind a little bit in the early 80s.
Blues background. Ooh, baby.
Yeah.
But we'd moved on to Iron Maiden, AC/DC, Judas Priest, and this was faster, harder. It was the next generation on.
Yeah.
You've got Van Halen in America.
Yeah. So Coverdale's now thinking, where do I stand? What happens to me in the midst of this? Am I now am I now an old man? I'm sure all of these things go through your head. They would naturally for anyone. You reach that kind of mid-career point where you go, is there another reinvention inside me? Is there something?
And he does start to reconfigure the band.
Yeah.
Mel Galley comes in for a while, but the big move was getting in John Sykes.
Yeah.
Who just had a great success in the UK and Europe with Thin Lizzy and their final album, Thunder and Lightning, and who looks like
all of a sudden,
equivalent of Coverdale.
He's next generation, but probably better than that, because at this point Coverdale has still got the old leather snakeskin tie, and the black jeans. It's not, his hair's still brown. Yeah, he's not what we come to think of when we think of David Coverdale. Quite yet.
And interesting, in a kind of interesting future echo that would reoccur, say, with Vi, when they brought John Sykes in, because that album, Slide It In, one of the great album titles of all time, along with Slip of the Tongue.
Yeah.
When Slide It In came out in Britain and Europe, it had different to America. It hadn't come out in America. Geffen signed the band and did what Geffen do, which is they kind of brought it up to date, slightly different cover. But they also, and I don't know how they did this, or even if they really did do this, but I remember the story we wrote in Kerrang was John Sykes had come in and
that's right, yeah. So they said.
So they said. Now, at the time, I think they maybe said that to promote Sykes and kind of marginalise the fact that they got rid of Mel Galley, who had a terrible accident with his hand.
That's right, he did his hand in.
He did his hand in, so they just went, see you then, as you do.
Ruthlessness is another trait of the rock star. Yeah.
You can't wait. Time waits for no man.
Yeah.
So, but within a couple of albums, it was the opposite. So by 89, with Slip of the Tongue, Adrian Vandenberg had recorded all of the guitar. But Vi was a deal breaker. Vi said, okay, I'll join the band, but I'm going to re-record everything. Vandenberg doesn't appear on the album, no matter what they say.
Yeah.
And they said that was because Vandenberg injured
his hair. Yeah.
I wonder where they got that idea from.
Yeah.
Anyway, but back to Slide It In. That becomes their first gold record in America.
Right, yeah.
This is the beginning of the MTV version that they would become very quickly.
Yeah, very much so. And I think, that transformation is probably, you're probably right. There was I hadn't really thought of that, transitory album in Slide It In. You're right, that was quite big, even though it wasn't a great record, I don't think, by Whitesnake's standard.
Love Ain't No Stranger.
Love Ain't No Stranger, good song, which again, he felt was so good, he might record it again a bit later.
People forget.
They don't. Well, obviously I had forgotten.
Well,
I'd forgotten that was on there. Love Ain't No Stranger.
It's great.
Yeah.
Slide It In.
Right to the top.
To the top. I always felt he was probably talking about what did you think?
Well, I don't know. Well, I mean, with Covey, we always left it ambiguous, didn't he? That was one of his great traits.
He wasn't so much the master of the double entendre as the singing.
Exactly. Yeah, the sort of human carry-on film, wasn't he, at that point? But. So, you're right with MTV, but all of a sudden, the absolute shock when 1987 comes out. I mean, you heard he's working with Sykes and all of this. You think, okay, Coverdale's working with such. He's worked with a million guitarists. What are you going to tell us? He's all the guitarists he worked with are good. Yeah. He works with good guitarists. He's working with Jon. But then, my God, out comes this, and standing there in front of us is no longer the snakeskin tie and the black jeans. This new God, the frosted hair, backlit in that classic way, so you can see all the strands.
He'd also been working out with a personal trainer for years.
He's got the tan, he's got the bangles and the bracelets. He's had a makeover, and he looks amazing. And all of a sudden you feel like this is almost the last piece in the puzzle. The voice has always been superb. He's always worked with good guitarists, but all of a sudden here's this guy who's writing these big anthemic, 1980s hits. This is the stuff that was on MTV. This is the stuff that's on the radio. Huge choruses, massive riffs. Coverdale always revered Led Zeppelin. He always revered Jimmy Page, no matter what he said at the time. People would remark to him in interviews on the slight similarities between some of the riffs that appeared on 1987 and some of Jimmy Page. Oh, no.
You know what he used to say? Because I pulled him up on this a couple of times. He went, no, darling, you see, it was always Jeff Beck for me.
That's what you do. That's the classic diversion.
He goes, if you listen to the Truth album, I think the next one's Beck Ola or something, the two albums with
Hi-Ho Silver Lining.
Apart from Hi-Ho Silver Lining. He said, look out for that track Rice Pudding. That's where it comes from. And I'm thinking, right, because Still of the Night isn't all it's
Rice Pudding.
That famous, that classic Beck song that we all know. Who doesn't know Rice Pudding?
It's amazing, isn't it? I mean, this stuff they come out, and we'll come to that because I'll tell you the story in a minute of how Coverdale schooled me in the art of rock journalism. But he definitely did, because but in order for me to tell that story, we just need to very, very briefly talk about the videos, because this is the other sort of founding part of the current Whitesnake mythology. The video. All anyone remembers, the girl on the car bonnet.
Yeah, that's all I remember.
Yeah, that's all.
Do you know that I used to do a satellite TV show in the late 80s called Monsters of Rock, and David came on the show to premiere Still of the Night.
Yeah.
I'd never seen it before. So we're sitting there, we do our bit, and it was the only video they had available yet. We had to show Love Ain't No Stranger or something, slide it in for the rest of the interview. But we do this thing on the video, and it's amazing. I'm looking at this girl, and he's sitting next to me, and he elbows me. He goes, "Great piece of ass." But it sounded like, obviously in LA. At this point. So "great piece of ass" was just vernacular.
Yeah, but said in this sort of tremendously ripe.
Richard Burton.
Great piece of ass. And of course, it transpires that this great piece of ass, which we absolutely shouldn't use as a phrase in this day and age, because we're talking about a human being, but this great piece of ass was in fact
Tawny Katane.
Tawny Katane, who...
Do you know what her real name is?
No, again, the seamless piece of research is coming in here. I don't know what her real name is. What is it, Mick?
Julie.
You mean Tawny isn't a real...
No, you see, she was always Julie to me.
Yeah.
No, she doesn't. I only found that out 2 minutes ago when I Googled it.
But she'd been in LA. She was a girlfriend of Robin Crosby.
From Rats.
Yeah, who was a real rock star guy, wasn't he? Tall, massive,
big guy,
huge man, long hair and all the rest of it.
He always looked to me like he had a couple of guns.
He did.
A couple of 6 guns in there. He always looked like he should be smoking a cheroot. With a Coke spoon dangling from his neck. He was the quintessential American circle the wagons, kill all the Indians rock star.
That's right, So she'd made a bit of a jump to the quintessential English rock star in Cov, but they became this amazing power couple, didn't they?
It was her legs on the cover of Invasion of Your Privacy.
Yeah, that's right,
And also, I think she was very much on the scene in LA in those days.
Yeah, in the early days of Rat, I think, when Rat were trying to make it, she was Robin's girlfriend. So she has this knowledge of the business and what's going on and what's required and all the rest of it.
And she'd done a couple of movies by then, including one that's now described as an erotic
masterpiece, I thought you were going
to say. An erotic minor piece.
Yeah, yes.
But anyway, so she's a model, she's an actress, she's an LA socialite.
Yeah.
She knows the boys.
Yeah. And all of a sudden, she's with David, and this is kind of like the queen to his king, all of a sudden, despite everything that's else is going on in 87. And smart move calling the album 1987 as well, because it was the peak of that time, wasn't it?
It really was.
Absolutely perfect, And
it was, it was a much bigger album than Deep Purple ever had.
Oh, huge record. Yeah. I mean, single after single on that album as well, so.
Well, that's a thriller. Still of the Night.
Yeah.
I mean, whatever way you look at it, whether it's Rice Pudding or Led Zeppelin, that is a fantastic record. Yeah. Fantastic. Brilliant video. Sykes, we should mention this, Sykes gone before the album.
Yeah. Now you've got Viv Campbell and Adrian Vandenberg, haven't you? Yeah.
Neil Murray on the bass, gone by the time. Rudy Sarzo licking his bass.
Yeah.
Ainsley Dunbar was the drummer, gone. You've now got Tommy Aldridge.
Yeah.
The man who would do drum solos with his bare hands.
Yeah. So you got an American MTV band backing you up now.
You have.
Yeah.
You have. Vandenberg, I mean, God almighty, Sykes looked amazing. Vandenberg was like Sykes on steel.
Yeah.
So there's Still of the Night. Then there's Is This Love?
Yeah.
Which Coverdale told me he and Sykes had written for Tina Turner.
That's right, yeah.
But it got rejected. Because I think Tina Turner, everybody was submitting songs at that point.
Yeah.
She was huge. So it got he always used to tell me that they did the song and they liked it so much they didn't give it to her.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Well, yeah.
And then there was Here I
Go Again. I mean, the perfectly named song, because he did go again. Here he goes again.
I mean, great song. I love the original, but I do actually.
Yeah, with the new keyboards and everything, it sounds amazing. Yeah.
Well, they did the album version, and then they did a couple more versions.
Why not?
I forget the name of the guys, but it was well-known. It was Nigel Olsen, Greg Giuffria.
Yeah, all those guys. Yeah.
But did you know that John Kolodner insisted Coverdale changed one line of that song?
No.
And the original goes, like a hobo.
Yeah, like a drifter, wasn't it?
They changed it to like a drifter.
Yeah.
Kolodner was concerned that to American ears, it would sound like he was singing like a homo.
Yeah.
I wandered land. The line is like a homo.
If he did that would be amazing if he'd done that.
If he called the album Like a Homo. He could have opened up a whole new audience himself.
Yeah.
Trans Snake. There's still time, David, if you're listening.
Yeah.
There's still time.
Well, he's a great man for reinvention. He might come up, but I get it. Yeah, Kolodner was always very sharp like that, wasn't he? Very, very sharp.
And of course, Tawny is in all the videos.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And again, you can feel the hand of Kolodner on the choice of Still of the Night as the first single. It's not going to be the big hit. It's not the real radio, but it's the establishing song. It's the massive sound. It's the big riff. It's it's the one that the rock fans are going to go. The rock fans are going to get, wow, this sounds amazing. This is massive. And then you get Here I Go Again and Is This Love and all the rest of it.
It establishes credibility.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And Kolodner was brilliant at that. Brilliant at it. Really had a plan in his mind for this is the way it's going to go. And Coverdale had delivered him the right album for him to go and do that with.
And that really was the optimum moment for a record like that. By the time it comes out, I think spring '87, Slippery When Wet by Bon Jovi, which had come out about 7 months before, is the biggest rock album in the world.
Yeah.
But '87 comes out, and it's almost like no, this is covering that area, but this is the real deal from a guy who really comes from that authentic, original '70s rock world. At the same time, you've also got Def Leppard release Hysteria in '87, and again they went with Women as their lead track because that was the big rock number. Wasn't a hit for them in America, but it re-established their credentials. We're a rock band. And then they put out, all the other pop singles that were huge hits. But also in '87, you have maybe one of the records that begins the wheel to turn towards the '90s, which is Appetite for Destruction. Makes no impression at all in '87. It's nearly a year later. It suddenly is the biggest album in the world. But for a while in '87, it was Bon Jovi, followed by Whitesnake, followed by Def Leppard. Whitesnake and Def Leppard were touring America around about the same time because the tours went on forever. And they told me that Coverdale, because he was always about a week ahead of them, would leave messages on the dressing room walls. Gentlemen.
Welcome.
Well,
please, we've tied it up. Please leave it as you find it.
Probably. So he was, at this point, he is, because, God love Joe Elliott, fabulous frontman. God love Axl, God love John. I mean, Coverdale he's like a Roman gladiator. He is a king on his...
He is, at this point, he is the full package, isn't he? He looks amazing. He's got the genuine rock credentials. He's got the LA band. There used to be rumours going around. I never knew how true this was. When you used to go out to LA and you either stayed in the Sunset Marquis or the Hyatt House, but there was a hotel called the Mondrian. Do you remember that with the Sky Bar? Was it the Sky Bar? No, there was always a rumour that Coverdale owned the Mondrian or something.
He did.
There you go. He did. It wasn't just a rumour. There ain't no love in the heart's own.
From 1987. They're all shot at the Mondrian.
Are they shot at the Mondrian? Are they? Research.
There's one where she...
Well, I never got in there, obviously.
You never stayed at the Mondrian?
No.
Mondrian.
No way, man. Sunset Marquis, if I was lucky. The Losers Hilton, as it was known.
The Mondrian was almost across the street from the Hyatt. Because I remember I was staying there. I had to go and interview Slash, and he was only staying at the Hyatt.
So was I, probably,
so we came back to
You say only the Hyatt?
Well, it was a bit of a B&B compared to Montreal.
It was, because Montreal had the Sky Bar, where everyone wanted to go,
So 11 a.m. on a Saturday morning, me and Slash are sitting in the Sky Bar, looking out over the pool, and there's a glass wall, and suddenly, no kidding, there's about 30 of the most beautiful young women you've ever seen in your life, in bikinis, all pressed up against the bar. Slash!
Mick. There were a few older guys there. Mick, I saw your show, but I love your writing, man. And you're like, Slash, that's how it goes.
But anyway, we digress. So here is Coverdale in LA, living the dream. And also...
Very much,
the dream turns into reality in other ways, because him and Tawny
are married, aren't they?
Well, they get married. They start out as an item, this great piece of ass, and Coverdale, the king of rock and roll. And now in real life, of course, and now they're like Beckham and Posh became.
Because there was who did the amazing photo session? Was it Ross or Ray Park? It was Ross. On the beach in LA. I mean, it was just there's a little sort of, there's a driftwood fire, and, Tawny's in the bikini and covers it. I think he was in a lounge suit, wasn't he, or something? Or not, a dinner suit.
Yeah,
with a little, he looked amazing. Yeah, and they're on the beach.
She wasn't in much of anything.
No, of course, not for the whole 1980s.
She must have been sitting on the sand because the picture I remember still has sand on the bottom.
Yeah.
That's the picture I remember.
Yeah, that's the one from that photo session. But it's this whole thing. And the other thing he did, which I'd be interested in hearing about, because as we mentioned before, LA in that time was a great sort of social scene. You mentioned being with Slash and all these people. Coverdale seemed to understand the value of rarity as well. He wasn't a ligger. He wasn't the kind of guy who'd turn up at everything. No. You wouldn't see him everywhere, so he had that, say like being a king. You'd only see Coverdale occasionally. You'd see David Lee Roth more than you would see Coverdale,
Yeah.
You'd see Axl all the time. You'd see the Black Crowes or those guys, but you wouldn't necessarily see Coverdale because...
Well, he by 89 and Slip of the Tongue, he and Tawny were married. Didn't you go and visit them in their penthouse?
Well, this is when he schooled me in the art of rock journalism. Right. This is when Steve Vai joined the band, and they kind of, you can sort of sense the thinking of where do we go from here? You mentioned that the wheel had turned slightly since 1987. He needs to come back with something even bigger than 1987. So what do you go and basically buy the biggest guitarist in the world? Vai had been amazing in David Lee Roth's band, where he had to do the almost impossible and replace Eddie Van Halen. But he did it. You remember him at the Hammersmith Odeon, amazing shows. I mean, you probably saw Roth in America a lot, but he had this sort of heart-shaped guitar that had two necks that he would play with either hand, and Dave's on a fucking surfboard over the crowd, and Vai's on this two-neck guitar. I'm like, Jesus Christ, where can we go from? Yeah, but it had two, and he's going, it's like got about 6 hands and 10 fingers on each hand. It's like, and Ross flying about on a surfboard going, yeah, baby, it's amazing. And you can see Coverdale thinking, hang on, who's the biggest guitarist in the world, actually? Who's going to be standing next to me?
Point, maybe the best.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of guitar, you hear guitarists go on about whatever it is they're going on about. They always mention, I don't know, Satriani and those guys who were doing all that stuff.
Vai had the look.
He had the showmanship as well, because he'd learned, I think, from Roth. I think he's quite a quiet, studious guy, isn't he? But Roth had probably shown him that, when it's showtime, it's showtime,
absolutely.
And the light goes on and you start,
Well, I remember thinking that getting Vai into the group was a masterstroke.
It was, but it didn't sound great, did it? It didn't quite tie together. Coverdale's got the classic sort of rock voice that doesn't necessarily, in the way that Roth's voice went with Vai, because he was used to singing with Eddie Van Halen, and he's used to giving him space, and he knows that, Ross, love David Lee Roth, but he's not a great singer. He knows how to put a song across, but he's not a great singer. Whereas Coverdale's a great, singer. And really, you only need one of those guys on stage at once, don't you? You don't need a battle going on for,
really does.
The crowd.
Some of his best songs, they're not guitar, but numbers.
No.
They're just what they call block chords.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's just a good chord sequence that you can sing. Yeah, no. And what was the one they recorded "Fool for Your Lovin'" with Vai, was it? And it's like, with the best will in the world, Bernie Marsden or whoever plays it better because he's just that's all it needs. It's like All Right Now, isn't it? It doesn't need the solo in All Right Now is amazing because it's just a few notes.
Steve Vai had joined Free in 19.
Yeah, he would have fucked up All Right Now.
Would you play with
yeah, he would, because in the end, that's what you're buying, isn't it? When you get Steve Vai, that's what he does. Exactly. I'm sure Vai probably thought, I probably don't want to play it like that, right. But they're paying for Steve Vai, they're playing for I remember Coverdale, well, anyway, so Coverdale by this point is, the promotion for this album is huge. He's signed to Geffen in America, which is the sort of the biggest rock label in the world. I was going to say the hottest, but maybe that's sort of Deaf American or something. But the biggest in Europe, he's still signed to EMI, isn't he? EMI Capital. So they're kind of they're trying to keep up. They need to keep the goose that laid the golden egg, So they fly him in for press, right? This is the big start of the campaign. And they put him up in a hotel in Kensington. The Kensington, I don't know what it's called, but it's supposedly got the most expensive hotel room in London. Where else would you put David Coverdale? And Sandra Casali, who was doing his press at the time, was very funny, really love it, fantastic press officer, very funny. And of course, she's kind of playing along with all this because, in those days you had to be seen to be, conspicuous consumption. It had to be seen. This was the point. It was going to become part of the story that Coverdale is in the most. But what they did was, when you sort of went into this hotel, they said, David's in the master suite, which someone like the King of Oman or something had been in the week before. You hear all this stuff. Some lesser being booted him out so Cov could come in. Yeah. So she said, so what we've done is we've rented another really like the second best hotel room. That's where the interviews will be, So you're sitting downstairs waiting your turn, because he's doing all the interviews. And then she comes over and goes, David said he wants you to come to the main suite, whatever it was. And so you think, you're puffing yourself up, you're thinking, oh my God, all these other guys are in the journalists. I'm going to and you get in this private lift with the lift attendant, and the lift takes you straight into the room. There's no corridors or anything like that. You get out, and this place is like floor to ceiling glass with views over Kensington at dusk. It's like, it was sort of coming into autumn, I think, maybe. So it's this sort of autumnal dusk. You expect to see Peter Pan flitting past, it's this sort of beautiful English scene. And out walks Cov. And without a word of lie, he's wearing jodhpurs, right? Riding jodhpurs. And boots, like high, shiny boots. And the Whitesnake is firmly outlined in the jodhpurs, as it would be,
Really?
And he's got a little sort of hacking jacket on, like a sort of, and he is the country's guy, but he's still got the hair. The hair's majestic, And you know what? When you interviewed Coverdale, he had a wonderful trick of he would always use your name.
Oh, yeah.
So even though you kind of knew he didn't know you from Adam, he would say, oh, John, how wonderful to see you. And in every sort of first sentence to every sort of second or third question, he would use your name because it was making it, and you start to puff up and you sort of, oh, this is great. And then halfway through the interview, hear this door open, and out comes from the bedroom.
Oh, of course.
In almost nothing but lingerie, tawny Kitane. And he gives this great line. He goes, my wife's been lying down because she's been shopping. And I'm looking at her going, this is now like an MTV video. She looks amazing. And Coverdale's giving me all these great quotes. He comes out, he goes, we're talking about Steve Vai, he goes, he's making the greatest sonic tapestries since Axis Boulder's Love. He obviously, So I come out of this interview thinking, I go back to the office, I'm going, lads, I've got it. I have nailed it. I've got the interview, Everyone else is in the lessons, I've gone up to I've done this, I've done that. He told me this, he told me that. Write it all up, Waiting for it to come out, of course, the Q interview comes out, the Sounds interview comes out, the NME, everyone's got the same thing, everyone's got the same quotes, everyone's played the same game. And it was just Coverdale making everyone feel like they were getting something special, but they were just getting the standard interview that he'd worked out weeks ago what he was going to say, had all the lines. I'm sure Tawny came out of that bedroom about 6 times, at the appointment. But it was a masterpiece of staging, and it taught me, in journalism, you always have to look beyond that. You have to realise when that sort of thing is happening to you.
Did he call you Jonathan?
I don't think he did. He might have done. By the end, he could have called me anything. It was fantastic. I was thoroughly seduced by him and his Whitesnake. Yeah, I'd have gone into the bedroom, if they wanted to consummate. Had his wicked way. And he was a very, he had great charisma. He had all the things you want a rock star to have. Great lines, he's funny. He looks great, you know.
He always had this thing, again, I think, to kind of personalise. Like, he never called me Mick. Was it Michael?
Michael, yeah.
How are you?
Yeah.
And it was the same with everybody. You know, if your name was Nicholas, I will call you Nicholas. But he would. But he was so funny because I remember cutting forward a little bit to when I was the editor on Classic Rock magazine. This is when he had his solo album out in 2000, 2001, something like that. And I sent Sian Llewellyn, who's now the editor-in-chief of Classic Rock. She was a freelance for me at the time. I sent her to America to interview David. So I wanted to get a woman.
Yeah.
But of course, being David, he expected me to turn up because you're the editor. Michael.
Yeah.
Well, Michael, I think you know. And Ross was there inevitably taking the pictures, and Ross told me, he said it was fantastic. Coverdale went over to Ross, because Sian hadn't turned up, and she's turning up to interview him in a moment. He said to Ross, "Who is this woman, Sian? Who is she?" And Ross goes, "She's standing right behind me." And he turns on the seat and goes, "Sian, darling, I've been expecting you." And it's all kisses her hand. Yeah. And Sian's like,
Yeah, he did.
"Who is this woman?"
Yeah.
"Sian, darling."
See, he tremendous charmer, the old snake charmer. That was him. You know, but you know, to again jump up. So he does the album, and there's this kind of decline, isn't there? Because you know, grunge comes along, and
Slip sold over 1 million.
Yeah, I mean, it's still, you know,
87 had sold 8 million.
Yeah,
so it was seen as a flop.
Yeah, but and then there are a lot of bands like that who were kind of, you know, they set their stall out in the late 80s. Where do you go? Once Kurt Cobain turns up in a bloody jumper he's got from Woolies and you know, I've been living under a bridge. You know, Coverdale ain't living under no bridges. You know, Whitesnake or not. You know,
Coverdale was crying in the rain.
Yeah, he didn't. He didn't want to live under a bridge. What do you want to live under a bridge for?
But here's what he does, which I thought was smart. He vanishes.
Yes,
he doesn't. He doesn't do what Bon Jovi did or Def Leppard did and kind of tough it out.
Yeah,
I'm not saying they were wrong. I think they both did a great job of it. But Coverdale just vanishes, like you said. He doesn't turn up everywhere. He's gone. But when he comes back, it's rather magnificently. It's with Jimmy Page.
Yes.
Coverdale.
Yeah. And this again was, you know, it was just fantastic because it was, you know, you get the impression Coverdale's whole career has been slightly tongue-in-cheek. Yeah. However much he cared about everything. And this is...
I like the idea that his whole career has been slightly tongue-in-cheek. Yeah.
You
were slow there, weren't you?
Yeah, no, I was too pleased with myself. But he suddenly, you know, here he is with the original, the one he's been aspiring to. You know, Coverdale is one of the great English-British rock singers, one of the great English-British rock stars. But until now, he was never Robert Plant.
No.
You know,
now he gets a chance.
Now he gets a chance to be
a great shot.
Because it'd be interesting, and you could assess this far better than I could. You know, Plant's off in his phase where he's in the desert, isn't he? Going, you know, discovering,
hanging out with tribes.
Yeah, discovering other
the great mountains.
Yeah, which is, I guess, you know, his way of dealing with what happened in Led Zeppelin. Yeah. You know, Jimmy's way of dealing with what happened in Led Zeppelin was to curate the legend and to try and find a way of continuing it without being in the band. So what was Jimmy's motivation in getting David is almost, you know, we know what David's motivation in getting Jimmy is. What is the other,
I think because he needed a plausible frontman. I mean, I knew Jimmy in those days, and his manager in those days, Brian Good, had asked me for quite a long time to recommend a singer.
Right.
Because Jimmy had basically been waiting for Robert to agree to a Zeppelin reunion, and it kept coming close and then go and then close and then go. And it was really hard to think of someone. And of course, John Kolodner, his genius, because Jimmy was also signed as a solo artist to Geffen. They signed him because they thought Zeppelin would get back together, and when they did, they'd have the jump on everybody else. But it didn't pan out. It was Klodner that said, well, Coverdale's career in Whitesnake is definitely on hold. Jimmy, you've done sod all since your solo album in '88, which wasn't a great success. How about the two of you? I think they both just went, because Jimmy's a rock star.
Yeah.
Jimmy has no problem with Led Zeppelin. It's only Robert that got fucked up about, I can't be taken seriously because they see it as cock rock and blah, blah, blah. Jimmy, zero problem.
Yeah.
Very happy to go back to being the biggest rock star in the world, and if that means women, caviar and salt, then
so be it. Yeah.
So be it. That's the price you have to pay. And so they do this album, which I still think is a great album. But again, it reminds me of a story. I don't know how well you remember the album. There was a track on it called Feeling Hot.
Right. Not Feeling Hot. They didn't re-record that.
Very close.
Right, yeah.
I remember the lyrics when women to the left, women to the right, something.
Women all night. Yeah.
Feeling hot.
Yeah.
And Sandra Casali, who comes back into the story here, she told me, it was brilliant. She said when she was, because those days cassettes, when she was sending out promo cassettes, she deliberately deleted that track. The rest of the album is magnificent.
Good, yeah.
But in the middle of it, you got this women to the left, women to the right.
Fantastic, yeah.
Feeling hot. It's like these two old men singing about feeling hot.
Yeah.
It's just, no.
But this is the interesting thing, isn't it? To us, the partnership of David Coverdale and Jimmy Page is almost hallowed. It's like you've got the two. But again, set in the context of the times, it's two old men. Yeah. It's two old guys.
Yeah. Very long.
Yeah. At the same time that there's Eddie Vedder and there's Stone Temple Pilots bloke, whatever it is, Scott Weiland. Pretending he's David Bowie. Chris Cornell, wonderful singer. A generation younger, 2 generations younger than these guys.
Serious,
Yeah.
They weren't. Come back, babe. Women to the left. Women to the right. I hate it. I want to kill myself.
But I mean, he genuinely did. But I used to. But there was that sort of fundamental dishonesty, wasn't there? With like Vedder, where they go, "Oh, I hate this. I hate being in a multi-millions dollars. I hate it. I hate being a millionaire. These women, it's horrible. I don't want it. I want to go back to Seattle where it's raining." He really did cry in the rain.
Yeah.
He really was crying in the rain, Eddie.
Well, he didn't even need the rain.
He cried anyway.
He just was a cry.
Yeah. So there was all that, but here come the guys who want to be rock stars, as you say.
And who are rock
Jimmy, David, they're rock stars. They've got a certain constituency. They know who it is.
And and the album was top 5 in America, top 5. It went platinum quite quickly.
Yeah.
And they had a big US tour booked, and they had to pull the plug because ticket sales were, as they say, soft.
Yeah.
Because it was.
They went to Japan. You'll probably remember this because we were both working on Raw magazine at the time, weren't we? And they went to Japan because obviously they were big in Japan. Of course they're going to be big in Japan. Japan loves, rock stars.
Loves spectacle.
Yeah, they love rock. Yeah.
And larger than life.
Even if you have to go on stage at about 5 o'clock in the afternoon, but they do. And they're massive. And somehow, I'm trying to remember exactly what happened, but this tape works its way back, doesn't it, to the UK? Where Coverdale, where Coverdale has done these introductions. They don't have a row or something. Him and Page has had a row because Coverdale's done all these stupid, I guess Plant was always, and this is Stairway to Heaven or whatever, Whereas Coverdale's right, here's a song for you. How's your fucking Genki? That was one of his lines, isn't it? How's your fucking Genki?
Is Genki a Japanese word? For a snake, perhaps.
Maybe it is. Who knows? He comes up with all these faux phrases. You can imagine because he's loving it. He's with Jimmy Page. The crowd's going nuts.
Also, this is way pre-social media.
Yeah.
He has no idea anybody will ever hear One Night in Japan.
Yeah. So he does all these sort of intros, doesn't he? And then was Page. I remember we got someone to transcribe them.
Oh, yeah.
So we got a Japanese translator to say what all these intros meant, and it caused a massive hoo-ha for some reason. I can't remember why now.
He later released a live album called Starkers in Tokyo.
Oh, did he?
Yeah. I think it might have been Whitesnake.
Yeah.
The old memory begins.
Yeah, it begins to fade at this point.
So listen, John, conscious of the time.
Yes.
I'm wondering if we need to kind of to conclude and summarise.
Yeah, well, I think I would summarise it like this, because in his decline, after the Page thing fell apart, career decline, and he hit a real low point. And I remember, and I don't know when this would be, but the early 2000s, I went to see Whitesnake, and they were at the Shepherd's Bush Empire.
Wow.
Can you imagine what that was like? He's been in the biggest bands in the world since he was 17 or 18 or whatever it was.
We should explain.
It's a lovely theatre. It's a lovely little theatre.
2000?
If that, it's got an upstairs and a downstairs, and it's lovely. I mean, if you're doing, Death of a Salesman in it, it's fantastic.
It's foreigner doing an unplugged.
Oh yeah, it's that sort of venue. It's where if you're in a big band, you're doing it because it's a big treat and it's 200 quid a ticket, and you're doing, it's not just like
free.
Free.
Very expensive to those that can't afford it.
Exactly, which is pretty much everyone. Yeah, but Coverdale. This is the London show. And I went and saw it, and honestly, it was like seeing a panto. He was like Widow Twanky. It was here's a song for you, but it was done with a sort of a bitter sort of disdain, and it was terrible. And then something happened. I can't remember what it was, but the fortunes change once again. The wheel turns its back.
Classic rock era.
The classic rock era kicks in. Next time I see him, they're at Wembley Arena, and I had those sort of press tickets. The Wembley Arena, which used to be at the side of the stage. Do you remember? So you get a side-on view of And this is like 10, 12,000 people. Stood up, walked in. First thing I hear when I walked in was American Girls, and it's Y&T with the support band, who were fabulous. They were really wanted to hear that, and had old Leonard Hayes on the drums. So I think he's passed away now. There's this great kind of drummer they used to have, and then Whitesnake come on, and all of a sudden it's Dry Ice again. It's Here I Go Again. I think probably even Adrian Vandenberg was back in the band or something, And Coverdale's got the look, and in the middle of the set, he tells this brilliant, very funny story about now being a grandfather. He'd just become a grandfather. His daughter had just had a baby. And it was very funny, but it was also, it was really nicely done. And I just thought, you know what? This is a rock star. This is a guy who does big arenas. Yeah. That's what he's built for. Yeah. He doesn't work at any other level. That's the level for him. And you get bands like that. The same, you get bands who are brilliant in clubs, but would have no idea at Wembley Arena, because
he is like a Ferrari or a Lamborghini.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't take that car on the school run.
No.
Go and get a pint of milk or something.
Yeah.
You take it to drive across the desert with torn containers.
Yeah, exactly, As someone once told me, fast cars look fast. And that's, that's Coverdale,
That's wisdom. I tell you what, I spoke to him not so long ago, and as you say, I mean, they've been back on top for a while now. They did co-headline tours with Def Leppard. They're just those package tours. I saw the Journey and Def Leppard tour in America a couple of years ago. It's just a great night out.
Yeah.
No one's playing any new songs from their album.
Yeah.
It's just all the hits. And so I was chatting to him about this, and it's so fantastic. He said, and he was talking about the whole rejuvenation, how everything was going right. And he said, Michael, I have bluebirds flying out of every orifice. Bluebirds, Michael. Every orifice. And I was like, laughing. I get it.
Yeah.
And he's just on top of the world.
Yeah.
And I'm, for one, am really pleased. There's been all this kind of, does he have augmentation on his live vocals? Well, I'm not going to comment on that, but I am going to tell you this, which I'm sure you know anyway. But pretty much every major rock vocalist frontman in the world today, and I mean pretty much all of them, in fact, I'm going to say all of them, have augmentation. Because it exists. And Neil Schon from Journey was telling me, if you don't do this stuff, you just sound terrible compared to everybody else.
Yeah.
And it's not just vocals, it's harmonies, keyboards, beds, as they say, musical beds.
Yeah.
So, all that, taking all that into consideration, there are two vocalists I can't say right now, so I don't want to get sued, but two really famous ones that actually have a singer in the wing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I remember the old Meatloaf one when poor old Meatloaf fainted and went down bang on the floor. And I would do anything. He's still carrying on. He's on the fucking stretcher.
In fact, he's out.
Yeah, he is, yeah.
That's on YouTube.
Yeah.
You see him literally fall over flat on his face in the background.
He's still singing. He's still singing.
He's a true
went out on his shield. Good man. Yeah.
All right. Well, look, we're gonna call it a halt.
But hang on, you didn't finish the story. You were saying that there's two vocalists who have people in the wings.
Oh yeah.
But Coverdale.
Sorry. Coverdale, I don't think has anybody in the wings. But,
no.
But even if he did, so what?
Doesn't matter. He's been a great singer. And if when you're in your mid-60s, you can't sing? Of course you can't. You can't play football like you could in your mid-20s.
And I'll tell you what else I suddenly remembered is another, I think, great reason for doing this today is that the day this podcast goes live is actually just 2 days after David's birthday. 69.
Wow.
September.
He's been waiting to be 69. Can you imagine how he's going to have some fun with that, isn't he?
69.
He's finally at the perfect age. Happy birthday, David.
Happy birthday, David.
If you liked this episode, be sure to leave us a review, share it with a friend, or plain old subscribe wherever you happen to listen to it. For full episode show notes, visit nofilter.media/Getcha Rockstar.